We eat the food they give us, vote for one of two people that they tell us to, and watch the movies that they show. They take our attention as soon as we reach age 5, and they never give it back. We go to school for 8 hours a day learning what they want us to. They scold us until we obey, and then they praise us when we do. They make us form a habit of waking up and spending our entire day in a building that we wouldn't choose, so that when we get older, we are willing to do the same. Following orders becomes comfortable when we spend our childhood doing what we're told. So when we're older, we hesitate to stray outside the norm. They tell us that we should do anything we can to attend a university, because if we don't, we will fail. They manipulate us into financial dependency at a young age so that we stay liable to the system. They've given us a currency that only has value because they say it does, and we receive it by working at a business that they own. Their millions become billions while the rest of us are forced to sacrifice our time for a minuscule fraction of what our work gains for them. They provide us housing, but make it costly so that we struggle to accumulate enough wealth to escape their system. Our supermarkets are full of brands that they possess, to the point that it is difficult to find ones that they don't. Our meals are either purchased from a store that they most likely own, or created with ingredients from their brands. They tamper with the food they give us and pump them with toxic and addictive chemicals. They make the most harmful foods the cheapest and most convenient so that it becomes an offer that we can't refuse. Over time, we become addicted in many more ways than one, and they bombard us with temptation on every billboard or commercial. When we get sick from excessive consumption of this insubstantial food, we are forced with almost no other option but to give up financial solidity for the sake of our health. We pay thousands to facilities that they own so that they can prescribe us more harmful chemicals that simply numb the symptom. They revolve society around addictive foods that cause disease and expensive drugs that mask them so that we stay in a forever grasp of their system. We only ever consume content that they provide. Our news channels are operated by them to persuade us into two opposing perspectives so that we never share a same opinion. Why do you think it's free? They feed us shocking news headlines that provoke emotion and grab our attention away from what's really going on in the world. They've granted us with superficial idols that portray luxurious lifestyles so that we strive to be like them and associate money with happiness. They keep us focused on worldly problems that they've created to keep us zoomed in on our physical reality and detached from our Creator. If we keep our attention on what's going on around us, we will never be present and see the truth of God within us. The villain who runs the world knows the truth of our potential, and it's in their best interest to keep us distracted and willing to submit to a system that thrives on fearful compliance. Imagine if every person on this planet believed that we were created for a reason. We would unlock an unbreakable faith within ourselves and reverse the pyramid of power in which society was built. We would see past the lie that we've been living and turn to each other for help rather than depending on our corrupt leaders. Corrupt leaders who have accumulated a discrete monopoly that succeeds in circumventing the eyes of those who are unaware through the illusion of choice. The majority of us see the world as it is portrayed: diverse, coincidental, and plausible. To someone who lives day by day without taking a step back, the world kind of seems to make sense. Then we look behind the curtain and see that it really makes sense. Where there is one lie, there is many. Once we see one lie, we will find ourselves on an endless spiderweb of mass deception. The blindfold tied around us in childhood will loosen and light will be shed on our fabricated reality. Those in charge of us do not have our best interests in mind and never did. It has been a power trip from the start, and we have gone along with it since the birth of society and will continue to until we see a reason for change and stop pointing fingers at each other.
Welcome, empowered investors, and greetings from Denver, Colorado, more specifically Cherry Creek. I have enjoyed staying here for a while, and I am off to Las Vegas to host our collective mastermind event there, and then probably headed over to Southern California before going back to Miami because I've got a speaking engagement in Miami, then Austin. So now you know my travel schedule. If you're in any of these places and you would like to have a one-on-one session with me live and in person, you can book those. So reach out to any of our investment counselors. They can help you get booked for a one-on-one session. And I can always do it in person in one of those cities. So we can meet up and maybe even grab a meal together or just work in an office and work on your portfolio and talk about how I can help you take the next step in your real estate investing journey. So there is so much news in the world, and I keep thinking, wow, I just really want to talk to you about all of these things going on politically, the third assassination attempt against our presidential candidate, all of this crazy stuff. Certainly the hurricanes, got to talk about that. There's just so much going on. There is not enough time to talk about it on the YouTube videos and on the podcast. So I really want to encourage you to follow me on Instagram and on X. or formerly known as Twitter, now much better managed than Twitter. As we know, thank you, Elon Musk, for keeping free speech in the public domain, at least for now. But there's just a lot of news to talk about, especially politically right now. So do follow me on those channels for more information. But as far as the hurricanes, I wanted to talk about that. Obviously, tragic, tragic news with these successive hurricanes that have just battered people. Everybody asks, well, Jason, what about insurance? What about my rental properties? All of this stuff. And, I just don't have time to talk about every aspect of this. At our Empowered Investor Pro meeting next month, or I should say this upcoming meeting, we have an insurance specialist coming on who is from Florida and operates a brokerage in Florida that I personally use for some of my properties. She will be coming on to talk about insurance issues in depth. But I do want to say this. Number one, damage. What did I experience from the hurricane? Well, you're looking at a picture if you're watching me on video right now. Here is a picture of one of my rental properties that did lose part of a fence. And I own another rental property right around the corner from this one. And I went to, of course, where? I went to thumbtack.com and I sourced a couple of fence tractors. Then I went to taskrabbit.com and sourced a couple more there because I wanted to get some quotes on this. So I said to both of them that went out to the property so far, they just called me on the phone real quick. One actually texted me and I said, hey, go take a look at the other property I own right around the corner. I haven't heard from the tenants on that property, but maybe they have some damage. They probably evacuated for the hurricane. So both of them went to both properties and showed me that both properties sustained some damage to the fences. One of the eaves had a little bit of damage, like a piece was torn off of that eave, maybe 2 or 3 feet long. No big deal. So I guess my first point here is, look, if you have newer properties in these areas, these properties likely have little to no damage, okay? I don't even know that I'll bother filing an insurance claim on this. I'll probably just pay for it out of pocket. I'll see what the quotes come in at. But, again, not a big deal in most cases. If you have older properties that are built in the flood-prone areas that don't have the new codes, they do tend to sustain some damage. But it's fair to ask, these houses have been standing there for 50, 70, even 100 years sometimes. And they've had many, many hurricanes, right, that those houses have lived through, and they're still there. So a lot of this stuff you just have to realize is just totally overblown by the media. The media loves sensationalism, okay? This stuff is never as crazy or as bad as they make it seem. Unless, of course, they're trying to cover up for the pathetic presidential administration we have running the country right now and running FEMA. And that's a whole different story, right? So, there are multiple things going on here at the same time. But what about insurance rates? Well, folks, they've been going up for years, and they've been going up all over the country. Because think about what insurance really is. What is insurance at its core? The concept of insurance is the same as the concept of socialism, okay? We have this big pool of money, and we pay out some big claims to some policyholders, and we just collect money from the rest of the people. So even if you live or own properties in a non-disaster prone area that doesn't have wildfires, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, or hurricanes, which, by the way, a very large portion of the country is affected by at least one of those things. But, say you live in an area that isn't affected by any of those things, which is pretty rare. Your insurance is going up too. Yes, it is. It is. It has been because of the socialized nature of insurance. They socialize the losses. That's what insurance is. Okay. And then, I'm at the coffee shop this morning and I open the Wall Street Journal, which when I'm at a hotel, it's nice. I get an actual paper. It's just so pleasant to read an actual newspaper. I don't know why. And there's an article about people are leaving Florida because of the hurricanes. Oh my God. Really? Really? You think this is some big thing? No. They found a few people to talk about this that haven't even moved yet, that are just probably extremely discouraged, rightfully so, right? And so that's what happens. Look, the person who wins the game in life and business and investing is the person who doesn't panic, the person who has a steady hand, who realizes that most of the news is sensationalism, if not all of it, and also realizes that life goes on and people rebuild and things move on and the economy continues. I interviewed, and I'll publish this interview soon. I interviewed a friend of mine, a Ukrainian citizen who left Ukraine right before the war broke out because he knew something was up. It's a really interesting interview. You're going to see it soon and hear it soon. And what you realize is that even in a war-torn country like Ukraine, right, they have a wartime economy. The economy is still happening there, right? It's always happening. And life goes on. That's my point. So the people that tend to have knee-jerk reactions and panic, they're the people who just always kind of lose out in life, okay? This too will pass, as people say. It's just not as big a deal as it seems to be on the news. And, a lot of people are on low information diets and they really avoid the news. Now, I am not one of these people, but I definitely don't sit there watching TV. I hardly get any news from television. Number one, because I can't stand the commercials and I can't stand the fact that they run the same story over and over again. Okay. So if you watch television, I would highly recommend that you just give up television. Okay. It's like the idiot's medium. It's the worst medium to get your news. Okay. So that's one thing. Okay. Enough of that. Today we have an incredible guest. Charles Duhigg is on the show today. Yes, he's written several books, including Super Communicators. And look at this right here on Amazon, right? Super Communicators, How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection. His advice is second to none. It's so good. This is an editor's pick on Amazon. Best book so far of 2024. And it's got 1,510 ratings with very positive reviews. Look at this one. This is The Power of Habit, right? From 2012. This has got 38,803 ratings. Wow. And on Goodreads, it has 523,000 ratings. It's a New York Times bestseller, more than 3 million copies sold. The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business. And he is our guest today. And you know how I got Charles Duhigg to be on the show? He's a listener. Yeah. He listens to the podcast and watches the YouTube channel. So Charles, thank you for watching, first of all, and listening. I'm really honored. We do have a few other famous listeners and viewers as well. Glad to have you among them. And he reached out and kind of pitched me for the show. And I'm like, of course you can be on the show. I love your work. I've known about it for a long, long time. So you're really in for a great interview here. So we'll get to that in a moment. I just want to share this with you about real estate here. The average homeowner just gained another 25 grand in equity. I mean, it just keeps on going on. No matter what all the doomers say, no matter what all the crash bros say, somehow people keep buying properties and things keep moving on. Right? Maine, California, New Jersey led the states with annualized home equity gains, the highest gains, according to CoreLogic. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, don't be deceived. Do not be deceived. Because when you see things like now, I don't know much about the real estate market in Maine. I don't think it's terribly expensive, but maybe a little bit expensive. But certainly California and New Jersey are pretty expensive. And you've got to always ask yourself life's most important question. Compared to what, right? Compared to what? And when you compare the equity gain in dollars to the prices of the properties, the basis, the baseline from which they are starting, of course, California is going to have big gains, right? Of course, New Jersey is going to have big gains because the prices are already so high there, right? But you really want to look at it always as a percentage. That is the more meaningful statistic because the core idea of a percentage is what? It answers life's most important question. A percentage always tells you compared to what? And you see that Florida gained $22,000, Georgia $18,000, California, of course, $55,000, Nevada $36,000, Arizona $24,000. So Washington State a whopping $41,000. So pretty amazing how incredibly comfortable all of the existing homeowners that control over 130 million units. Well, see what I'm doing there is there's about 140 million total, give or take, but I'm taking out the ones that have sold in the last couple of years. So I take out about 8-9 million out of that. And then I get about 131 million now. Existing homeowners with high equity, 40% of them or so have no mortgage at all. And 25% of them have a mortgage at or below 3%, 65% a mortgage at or below 4%. These people ain't selling. They just won't give up those great deals they have. So now we are at the point of a Fed pivot, and we're just going to see all the crash bros and all the doomers continue to be wrong, wrong, wrong. Yes, some selected areas in the country have given up a little bit. As you can see, Texas gave up $3,000 in that example. And, life just goes on. So one more thing about hurricanes that people don't realize, and I did share this with you when I got the calls a couple of years ago, where the people were trying to be vulture capitalists in Naples, Fort Myers, after the hurricane hit there pretty bad. And they said, Jason, now's the time to grab up all the deals at pennies on the dollar. Everybody's going to be desperate to sell. No, the complete opposite is true. What happens is you have a housing market with certain supply and demand dynamics, and then you remove some of the supply because the homes have to be repaired or rebuilt. Okay? So that's less supply, not more supply. Get it? All these people, they just don't understand how this works. And then you take and you have all these insurance claims, thousands and thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands sometimes of insurance claims. So the insurance companies send all these people to these areas, and then they have to fix the properties. So all these contractors and construction workers and suppliers move into these areas, gobbling up what minimal amount of supply there is. So most people think, oh, now's the time all these desperate people will just take advantage of them and will steal their houses for pennies on the dollar. The exact opposite is true. There's more of a housing shortage than ever. And the supply-demand dynamics are more in favor of owners, not buyers. That's how it pretty much works every time. Okay. Now, look, that said, there are little pockets, okay, that you could measure here and there where those supply and demand dynamics might look otherwise from what I just told you. But that is the macro trend. It's the macro trend, right? There are little trends along the way. So no one needs to send me a link to some silly little article that says something a little different than what I just said, okay? I don't need the link. Don't bother. Don't bother making silly, dumb comments. Well, actually, I really do appreciate the silly, dumb comments from the fools out there. You know why? Because they really improve my ratings. So make all the silly, dumb comments you want because the algorithm loves you. Just make any comment. Say, Jason is a complete idiot. Fine with me. I love those comments because I will reply. I'll probably tell you what an idiot you are, but that's what happens. So the algorithm loves your comments. So make all the comments you want. All the haters out there love to hear your comments. Anyway, that's pretty much what happens with these dynamics. So you just got to understand it. But people are incredibly resilient. They rebuild, they move on, everything goes on. I know it's very painful at the time, but when you have the patience to just look at the big macro trend, it's like every downturn that I've ever lived through in the real estate market, and I've been doing this for many decades, folks, many decades, okay? Every downturn, if you just wait 18 to 24 months, it's an upturn. It's just amazing how that changes. So being patient is the right thing to be. Being calm, not overreacting, not having knee-jerk reactions, and not being impatient. that's who wins the game. It's the tortoise and the hare, folks. That's one of the secrets to life for sure.